The first thing you want to do is have a decoder. I'm going to use an NCE decoder, and you need a Thomas the Train engine. And the first thing you want to do before attempting installation is to be sure that it runs good on DCC trackage first, as poor performing engine will still perform poorly on DCC, and maybe worse. Okay, the tools you'll need for this is a number 1 Phillips screwdriver and a soldering iron, some solder, a decoder. I'm using the NCE DS13, I believe, decoder, and I've already, as a trial of this, I've already installed this decoder and programmed it, but I reassemble the locomotive in DC, and one of the steps is to remove all of the wiring from the decoder, so I have already. Okay, the first thing first is I found out after disassembling the locomotive that you don't have to get to what you need to do. But I'm going to show this as if I had never done it before. First of all, to show you the screws and the locations of the screws that you would take this locomotive apart are, there's one here and one here to remove the gearbox and wheel assembly to disassemble the chassis from the shell. So if you remove the screws, and the chassis comes away, exposing the gearbox. There's another screw in the middle of this. Do not take it apart, as your gearbox will fall apart and the wheels come apart, so it's a little more disassembly to put it back together. This in turn shows 3 screws to take the chassis away from the shell, so we will remove those. This exposes the motor. There's 2 screws to take the motor and eyes apart. I don't need to do that, so I'm not going to take it apart. This also shows the circuit board inside of the Thomas, and there's 2 screws holding it on. This is when I found out that the roof comes apart, and you don't need to do all of these steps here. Okay, now that I've reassembled Thomas, I will show you how easy it is to put the DCC chip in this locomotive. First of all, you grab the black top of the locomotive and wiggle, and it comes out. Bachman was kind enough to leave plenty of wire for us to get to everything. On the circuit board, don't know if you can see this or not, but there is a motor positive, which has an orange wire connected to it, a motor negative, which has a brown wire connected to it. The power positive and the power negative being red and black respectively. What we're going to do is remove this and insert the decoder in between the 2. The other thing I found out is there's plenty of room to install a decoder on the inside and install the top back on top of it. We will do that when we're completed, but there's plenty of room. So first thing is remove the screws from the circuit board. Okay, shorter wires are the motor wires, so I'm going to remove them first from the circuit board. Write down the colors to what they go to if you can't remember what color goes to what. Sorry about this. Not getting a good grip on the wire to pull it out. Okay, there's the motor wiring. Now for the track power wiring. Okay, lots of extra wire. On the NCE decoder, the outside wire, looking at the circuit board down, the outside right wire is the motor positive wire. The outside left wire, or gray wire, is the motor negative wire. The wire next to the motor power positive is the positive wire for the track. And the black wire, of course, is next to that. The 3 light leads in the middle are not to be used, so we won't connect anything up to them on Thomas. If you want to add a light into this, LED, or drill it out, put a light bulb in it, then you would use one of the blue wire and one of the other of the light leads. But I'm not going to do that at this time. I'm just going to get a decoder installed into the unit. So, having removed all of the extra wiring from my decoder to get it out of the way, I'm going to trim this wire so it fits real tight to the decoder and won't stray. So this one goes here. Pull on it, be sure it's good and snug. Same thing applies for this one. Good and snug, good tight fit. Okay, red power lead goes next. Black power lead needs a little trimming. Okay, here are the 4 leads connected up. Make sure no stray strands are touching. Everything looks good. Now we're going to install them into Thomas. And you could cut a lot of this wiring off, clean up the installation. Well, first thing we want to do is we want to insulate this so that there's no shorts on the inside. Let me locate my tape and I will do that. Easiest way is just use rubber electrical tape. And then install the decoder into the shell. Hard part is getting the wires out of the way. Okay, as you can see, plenty of room to put the cab back on. I found out this was a little tricky in the fact that it has to line up perfectly to snap back in. There we are. Now we will proceed to hook up the DCC system to the same track and run it on DCC.